Good afternoon, and welcome to today's webinar on the use of social media to more efficiently and effectively reach a broad audience. I'm Linda Rosen, Project Manager with OJJDP's Innovation and Research Division. We only have an hour or so in the interest of time, I'd like to turn the mic over to Michelle Duhart-Tong from the National Training and Technical Assistance Center.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us today. I hope that the topic you will find very valuable on social media. To view the bios and photos of the presentation panel, please access the documents which are available now in the handouts pod of the webinar dashboard. Numerous handouts will be referenced today that are also located there for your resource library. To send a chat message to me, your host, a panelist, or another attendee, click the menu icon in the upper right corner of the chat pod. Choose Start Chat With, then select Hosts, Presenters, or Specific Attendees. 2, type your message into the chat box, and then hit Enter or click the message bubble icon to send. Most of you are familiar with the process. For those of you participating in today's webinar as a group, please take a minute and help us count. Go to the chat window and type in the name of the person registered and the total number of additional people in the room with you today. This will help us with our final count. Again, if you're viewing with a larger group, please type in the name of the person registered and the number of additional people joining you today. There will be 2 opportunities for Q&A throughout the presentation. Questions will be answered as time permits during the Q&A segment. At the conclusion of today's webinar, you'll be provided with a link to take a 5-minute survey about today's presentation. We appreciate your feedback regarding this webinar. This information is used to assist in future planning and training. You will be able to access the evaluation link on the last slide of the PowerPoint. For those of you participating as a group, when you return to your office, please enter the link on the last slide in your web browser to share your feedback. And finally, this event will be archived in OJJDP's online university at www.ntac.org in approximately 2 weeks. Again, thank you so much for joining us today. There are 4 learning objectives. We hope that at the conclusion of today's webinar, you will have a little bit more knowledge about how to launch your social media efforts. Hopefully you'll get some helpful tips for maintaining consistency as well as engagement, which are 2 key pieces for your target audience. We hope that you'll learn some information about how to sustain and grow your social media efforts over time, as well as learn some lessons learned and understand pitfalls to avoid as you get started if you're new in this arena. Now let's hear again from Linda Rosen. Linda?
Hi. The Office of Juvenile Justice, and thank you, Michelle, is working to develop policy that will assist us to establish a presence on the popular social media platforms. OJJDP will soon begin posting messages about its activities and publications and other efforts on Facebook and Twitter, and will eventually add other platforms such as YouTube. The OJP Office of Communications recently provided guidance to OJP bureaus that we can link to .gov or to .org sites, but not to external media sites. In addition, please note that OJP has disclaimer language that agencies are required to use and feature prominently in their social media pages. That language is being revised for OJJDP grantees and will be available in the near future. Here are a few OJP resources that may help in your efforts. Others will be mentioned throughout the presentation today. Thank you.
As Linda said, we're going to be moving very fast. We only have 60 minutes. We have a lot of great information to cover, and we've got a great presentation panel lined up for you today. The second presenter is Kara Watkins. Kara is the Training Outreach Coordinator from the National Children's Advocacy Center. She will be sharing some basic information with you around Twitter, Facebook, and perhaps how you can use this in your training and TA efforts. Kara, take it away.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm just going to quickly go over some of the more commonly used social media platforms with you so that when other presenters go into more in-depth descriptions later on, you'll have a better understanding of what they're talking about. We're going to start with Facebook, which is most of you are familiar with. Even if you're not, I'm sure you've heard about it. It is the most common of all social media platforms. But what you might not know about Facebook is that a business Facebook page is laid out very differently than a personal Facebook page. I know Alicia in a few minutes will go into great detail on that. Facebook is a great place for training and technical assistance agencies to announce upcoming trainings, engage with viewers by asking what trainings they might like in the future, or even post frequently asked questions with the answers. The next social media, most common social media, is Twitter. Twitter is set up as a microblogging site. It's when you tweet, when you post on Twitter, you post as tweets, which are short 140 character comments or links to other websites, news articles. Twitter is claim to fame is hashtags. Hashtags allow Twitter to be oriented by subject rather than by agency. You don't have to necessarily follow a specific business or agency. You can follow a subject such as like poly-victimization. And if you use a hashtag, then everyone who would like to converse on that topic can all interact within Twitter with each other. YouTube is quickly gaining in popularity as more and more websites are using YouTube to embed the videos. Embedding YouTube videos on your website, in your emails, or your other social media platforms allows you to save space within these and on your network as well. YouTube is a great place to store videos for public or private viewing to save space on your own networks. A way that training and technical assistants can utilize YouTube is if you have any of your trainings recorded, or even portions of them recorded, you can post those on your YouTube site and then embed them to market them. You can also record reviews from past trainees on your trainings and embed those for marketing purposes as well. Somebody found one of your trainings particularly useful, you might get a comment of them recorded and combine it with some other ones. YouTube offers very user-friendly video editing so that you can combine multiple clips into one short stream, and that way if you have several people's comments, you can put it all in one video. Moving on to blogging. A blog is almost like a standalone website or an extended Facebook post or Google Plus post. Blogs, the great thing about blogs is you don't have to allow comments. It's a way to just get what you want to say out there without anyone else being able to see other people's comments on this. Basically, blogs provide written commentaries on training or technical assistance. LinkedIn is a more unique form of social media. It's professionally oriented. LinkedIn began as a place where people could post their resumes and post job openings, but it's kind of evolved into a place where many people go to look for expert conversations on specific topics. To do a topic-oriented blog on LinkedIn, you create a group on a subject. Like, for example, if you wanted to use poly-victimization, you could create a group titled Poly-Victimization, promote it within your other social media sites, and anyone who is interested in it would join that group, and then you could all converse within LinkedIn and attract other experts and ask for other expert opinions on different topics. The last platform we're going to discuss is Google+. Google Plus can be utilized for training and technical assistance the same way that Facebook is. You can post training opportunities, ask for training suggestions. But the one thing Google Plus offers that other social media sites do not is Hangouts. Hangouts allow a group video chat for up to 10 people at one time. You can invite specific people to your Hangouts, or you can offer open invitations for the first 10 people who come in. You can utilize this under subject headings as well. If you wanted to create a hangout to discuss poly-victimization, you could get up to 10 people video chatting all at once simultaneously inside of a hangout. Each of these social media platforms that I mentioned are free to use but offer paid upgrades or paid advertisement opportunities. And the numerous tutorials exist on each of these on YouTube and other, if you just Google any of them, they'll give you you can find numerous editorials on how to get started on them. And people are often intimidated to get started, but I think once you jump in and look at how user-friendly each of them are, you're going to find them very useful. Okay, Michelle?
Thank you so much, Kara. Appreciate all that information. And I apologize to the audience for some of the scratchiness. Hopefully it will get better as we move along. Our next panel of presenters is from Children and Family Futures. We have Russ Bermejo as well as Tara Garcia. Russ is a program associate with Children and Family Futures, and Tara Garcia is an administrative assistant. They both have valuable information to share with you around their social media efforts. Thank you. Russ?
Thank you, Michelle, Linda, and OJJDP NTTAC for having us. My name is Russ Bermejo, and I'm a program associate here at Children and Family Futures, and we're a nonprofit based here in Southern California. And we provide a full range of training, technical assistance, and evaluation support for drug treatment, child welfare, and court systems throughout the country. And our expertise is really about improving collaborative practice between these three systems to improve the outcomes of children and families affected by substance abuse who are also involved in the child welfare system. And we contract with federal agencies such as OJJDP and SAMHSA to serve as technical assistance providers. And under the OJJDP contract, we have a training and TEA program which has provided us the opportunity to work with over 200 family drug courts throughout the nation. Wanted to take a few minutes to share a high-level view of our journey of launching social media. And this photo or picture actually captures what it was like for us in 2011. It was certainly new frontiers. We knew that this universe of social media existed, and it was going to provide with us opportunities, but also lots of challenges. And so our executive leadership identified the opportunities of social media because these were identified tasks included in upcoming requests for proposals. But obviously there was also the interest of increasing our online presence and marketing efforts of our technical assistance services and products. So our leadership sent Tara and I to a one-day social media summit for nonprofits in San Francisco in late October 2011. And this one-day event covered 4 workshop sessions and also a private consultant who was able to address our specific needs and concerns regarding social media. And one of the takeaways from this summit was this idea of social media being social, and at risk of being Mr. Obvious here, but this can be a challenge for organizations that specialize in training and technical assistance and whose expertise involves a specialized body of knowledge. But imagine yourself at any social gathering, whether it be a dinner, reception, or a party, and ask yourself, what kinds of people do you find the most engaging? And it's usually the person who shares great stories, but also draws you into compelling conversation. But we're also drawn to people who listen well and who are genuinely interested in getting to know you. So what applies in the real world also applies in the virtual, and we are actually drawn to organizations who share compelling stories, but who are also genuinely engaged and are interested in learning from others. So what does this look like? A large part of this is paying attention to tone or voice. So this idea of talking with people versus talking at them, and we know that's easy to do in a social setting, but it's actually quite easy to do virtually, particularly as TA providers. So our initial intent of actually using social media as a marketing effort is challenged by the 80-20% rule, in which that rule basically says that the majority of your content should be focused on engaging and promoting others, and only a small fraction of your content should be self-promotional or discussing what your work is about. This also includes being an organization which is generous by asking about other organizations and giving a shout out to other organizations and responding to any kind of feedback or communication online. And one of the concerns that was raised by our organization about social media was how to handle negative interaction, comments, and posts. And we brought this up during the private session with the consultant, and his guidance was particularly helpful. Again, what applies in the real world oftentimes applies in the virtual. And the consultant asked us, well, how do you handle negative encounters during a workshop presentation or an exhibit table? And of course, we would trust in our professionalism in our response, but also use the opportunity to engage in constructive discussion. So this made total sense to us. So we came back from the summit a bit enlightened, and we were tasked to report back to our entire organization during a brown bag discussion. And we offered some key questions for our organization to consider, and we believe that these questions might be helpful for you as well. Do we have a vision for social media? Do you actually have a strategy? Do you have the resources to carry it out? And why do we want to do this? And how are we going to do this? We learned at the summit that launching social media just because you can, or because other organizations are doing it, but not having a strategy on how to keep it fresh and updated was the equivalent of neglecting the upkeep and maintenance of your the front outside entrance of your business or home. So social media offers the opportunity to develop an organizational voice and social brand also. So how do we want to present ourselves? How do we want to be seen online? You know, aside from these opportunities, we knew that social media was going to present a lot of challenges. So this led us to the need to have sacred cow discussions. And as you know, these are issues or ideas that prevail within an organization but are not oftentimes spoken or discussed openly. And we knew that some of these issues would need to be raised if we were going to move forward with social media. So the process of planning social media provided us an opportunity to look at some of the inherent divides or range of opinions and experiences with our organization. These divides included different levels of support between management and program staff. There were some staff and leadership that had varying experiences with social media. Here at CFF, we have project and functional teams with assigned leadership. And so the question was, were we going to have the level of support for social media across the organization? Was there going to be buy-in from the executive leadership? But also, was there going to be interest in developing content across the different teams in our organization? Social media also provides the opportunity to bridge the gap between data and telling stories. So here at CFF, we have a team of pretty accomplished and top-notch evaluation professionals who collect and analyze lots and lots of data. And then there are people like me. I'm a social worker by background who gets an allergic reaction to data sheets. But one of the powerful opportunities of social media is to be able to share very technical information and data and share it in a compelling way. So I remember being struck by the quote of Dr. Breen Brown, who's a social work professor in Texas, during her notorious TED Talk, in which she describes stories as basically data with a soul. So social media platforms provide an opportunity to take some very technical aspects of our work and breathe life into them, and making them very compelling stories that we can share with the world. Your organizations may have similar or different divides, and each organization has a different structure and different organizational culture, but when you decide to venture into social media or expand social media, these will certainly come to light. So at this point, I want to turn this over to Tara, who's going to provide an overview of what we've accomplished thus far and where we would like to be. Tara?
Great, thanks, Russ. So at the Social Media Summit, we learned about the separate social media arenas and how they're different from one another and yet stay in collaboration with each other. And it was brought to our attention that each media venue provides a different approach to our audience. So for instance, we decided a more slow-paced social media venue, such as our Family Drug Court blog, is a way more effective way to provide resources to our Family Drug Court community after a webinar, compared to something a little more fast-paced, such as Facebook, because in general, a blog audience will be expecting more in-depth content from you and be willing to invest more time there. Whereas Facebook may be a great way to quickly announce a new conference you're attending or something like that, because most of your audience is simply scrolling down their newsfeed to take more of a quick look at what's going on instead of really sitting down and reading through a text-heavy document. So I'm going to take you through how we've paced and connected our social media for now. So our Children and Family Futures website is really our information dissemination hub with all types of webinars, publications, conference materials, announcements and events, and people come to our website to access all different types of information. So we try to focus our social media platforms on bringing our audience back to our website on a consistent basis, because that's where we have the most to offer our audience. Our YouTube channel is specifically for our audience to enjoy webinar recordings, and is also great for those trying to view our webinars from their smartphones or iPads. Our Facebook has a couple of different functions for our audience. Like I said earlier, we post some fast-paced posts for our viewers, including pictures of live site visits and conference presentations and exhibits, or sometimes just a quick announcement regarding a funding opportunity we want to spread. But for someone who has a little more time, we also use Facebook to give announcements and links to publications, webinar registrations, or recent blog postings, so that if the viewer chooses to be more engaged, they have that opportunity, but we don't want to overwhelm them right away with a huge amount of text up front. Our Family Drug Court blog is an excellent social media platform that partners really well with our Family Drug Court webinar series. So after each webinar, we post follow-up materials on our Family Drug Court blog for everyone with a link to our website of the previously recorded webinar, along with any other resources that were mentioned in the webinar presentation or some readings that we thought would just go great in addition to the webinar. So now really taking a look at what we've accomplished. We've established an internal review process, which later we kind of realized was a matter of trust in establishing our organization voice and also deciding what was appropriate content for our organization. What are we comfortable with? So eventually our executive director appointed a program director for me to go to when I'm not really sure how to phrase something on Facebook, or in the event that we get negative feedback from someone. We've also invested in social media via staff time and resources. And, initially we weren't really sure how much we wanted to invest in social media when all of this began. But eventually management decided that it would be best for me to monitor the Facebook page and for Russ to monitor the Family Drug Court blog. And currently we're spending approximately 5 hours a week or so just to start on our social media. We've developed staff's awareness of social media. So now once a week I'm going to a staff meeting to kind of check in with everyone and grab photos or materials they may have for me to post on Facebook. And I also look ahead to try to send reminders to people who are heading out for the events that next week, because let's face it, most people are trying to keep program stuff at the forefront of their mind. And being designated as a social media person, it's my job to make sure that I'm keeping social media in the mix of that and kind of keeping everyone on track. We've built stronger relationships with grantees and partner agencies with social media cross-promotion. So we began doing our cross-promotion with fellow presenters at conferences and some grantees at site visits, and now other organizations and consultants have gotten more comfortable with asking us outright for our cross-promotion on our Facebook, our newsletters, blog, etc. So in a sense, cross-promotion has really opened a new level of communication with some of our partner organizations. And last but not least, reporting to OJJDP. This has been so beneficial for us to report our social media to OJJDP in terms of how many likes we have on our page, how many materials were downloaded, and also be able to draw a correlation between social media and how much our website numbers have increased. In the last 2 years, we've had approximately a 40% increase in our website views, which has been great. So looking ahead on where do we want to be? Where do we want to take our social media? Now that we've established a great foundation so far, where do we want to go from here? And really we want to continue to increase traffic, but mostly engagement and interaction. And now that we've built an audience, we want to start interacting with them more. We want to increase cross-promotion of grantees, organizations, projects, and consultants, when we really want to draw fun ways to highlight them on our social media. So we've been talking about maybe having a guest speaker on our blog with a quick Q&A session, or asking a grantee if there are any great outcome statistics for their family drug court over the last year that we could highlight for them, things like that. We want to invest staff resources to improve outreach, because it's one thing to establish your social media, but it's another to expand it. And sometimes you might need to reevaluate and see if you need different talents or a different amount of dedication to take your social media to the next level. And this might involve another sacred cow discussion with everyone. So you want to make sure you're keeping an eye on when you're ready to take it to the next level. We want to continue to define the organizational voice. Social media has really helped us in narrowing down a smaller, quicker, more marketable package for our organization. So now that we're wanting to move even a little bit faster with the additional platforms, which I mentioned in that next bullet with Twitter and Instagram, we want to continue to refine our organizational voice. Exploring and utilizing of additional platforms, Twitter and Instagram, we want to start to maybe target a different audience. And we want to include social media as a part of business development. So we have a business development subcommittee that started. One of the first things we included in that was social media and how we're voicing ourselves to the public. We want to explore what others are doing. So we're still eager to learn everything that we can from other nonprofits, but more specifically from other TA providers, and see how are they doing the balance act with social media and being information disseminators. So now I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Russ for a quick recap on lessons learned.
Just want to reiterate that leveraging social media is about being social. So it's going to take considerable resources, including staff resources and some level of skill and expertise to maintain the different platforms, as Kara and Tara previously mentioned. When you're in social media, you're facing a fast-paced innovation cycle where technology and methods and even rules of engagement may change. So staying on top of that is also going to require some attention. And then finally, know it's a process. So patience is really important. So setting up realistic goals and expectations, and perhaps establishing yourselves first on one social media platform before expanding to multiple ones is another prudent approach. And of course, observing what other organizations are doing on their social media platforms and learning from them is another great idea. At this point, I think we have some time. We have time for some question and answers. So, Michelle.
Thank you, Tara, and thank you, Russ. Great job. Lots of valuable information. Many of the things that you two mentioned are part of the 10 best practices for social media. So kudos for you all. And if you all have not availed yourself of the handouts and the handout pod, please know that a lot of what they've referenced are in a lot of these tools. If you look at the handout pod, probably the 6th or 7th file there says 10 best practices for social media. Be certain to read that. But a couple of things that they mentioned, I just want to reiterate. Have a goal and work towards it. Start small and build over time. You don't have to participate in every social media platform. The other thing that they mentioned, which is very important, is know who your audience is and portray yourself. Know who you are and portray yourself consistently. What makes your service unique? What's your brand? That's what you should be portraying in your social media. We do have a couple of questions for Russ and Tara. The first one being, someone's asked, and Tara started to talk about the analytics that you get from your social media. How is CFF tracking your numbers? Can you speak to that a bit?
Sure. So on our website specifically, we have a Google Analytics account set up through our company Gmail account. And our IT department has connected the traffic on our website to that. So that's been extremely helpful in being able to pull numbers for reporting. And it takes a little bit of getting used to, but it's very, very beneficial. And then in terms of our Facebook page, one really great thing that Facebook has recently developed is analytics for your Facebook page. So you can actually, it'll come up right underneath your main cover photo. You can click into the insights on your page, and I think Alicia and Kara will actually go into more detail later for you on this, but it's a great tool to be able to see, you know, if you're having more access to more of a female audience or a male audience, if you're, you know, what age group you're talking to, things like that. It's very important, and it also is a great indicator for us on what time of day you should be posting, because certain times of day, depending on your audience, are going to have more traffic. And normally the posts, for instance, with us, having so many, you know, government employees, it's easier for people to look at their Facebook when they get off work. So usually if we're posting stuff on our way out or anytime after 2 p.m., we get more traffic on those posts. So just kind of gauging things like that, it's been a great tool so far.
Excellent. Thanks for that information. And as Tara mentioned, Alicia Nunez will be talking a little bit more about the analytics and the importance of knowing how to use the information to help get your monthly reports completed. One other question I wanted to ask the two of you. I think a lot of people assume that you have to have a staff person dedicated to do social media for your organization. Approximately how many hours per week of staff time is used to update and monitor your social media platforms?
Well, I'll speak to that first on the Facebook page. Basically, I'm using probably right around an hour a day. It's an average of about 5 hours a week or so. And I would recommend designating one person to organize your content, because it ends up getting a little bit messy and people forget about it. Like I said, you have people that are working on program stuff, and so social media isn't really at the forefront of their mind. And you want to make sure that you're keeping track of if someone does comment on a post, that you give them feedback as quickly as possible and you acknowledge their comment, and that you also acknowledge any negative feedback, that you're making sure that you're keeping everything clean on your page. So yeah, I would say for each of us, it's probably about an hour a day so far.
Thank you. Good information. Very helpful. So hear that loud and clear. You don't have to have a full-time staff person to get started. You just have to have a goal and a plan and some expectations about how much time you want to devote to your efforts. Here's another question. How inclusive or exclusive is Google Plus? Do all visitors or users need to have a Google Gmail account to participate?
In terms of Google Plus, we haven't really explored that option a whole lot. We do have a company Gmail account. I think you need a Gmail account in order to participate. I'm not quite sure about that, but maybe Alicia and Kara have more information on that social media venue later, because I'm pretty sure their company has a Google Plus account.
Okay, thank you. So we'll address that again. Perhaps Alicia will respond to that. One more thing I want to ask you before we move to the next presentation panel, and I think this is a question that folks will want to know as well. As a TA provider aimed at disseminating information and knowledge, how do you maintain the 80%, 20% balance that you mentioned?
This is Russ, and this I think remains a challenge for us. I can speak at least for the blog platform that. Our FDC blog has primarily been used as a source to share resources, and it's an extension of our online webinar series, which I manage. But I think we're still looking for that balance. So right now, I think, especially on the blog platform, there's an opportunity to share compelling story, to build out a narrative of the work that's being done by family drug courts throughout the country. I think our organization and many of the organizations that are listening in right now are doing very compelling work, and lives are being changed. So I think the blog platform, I think there's more work for us to be done in terms of being able to share those stories. So I would probably say at this point we're probably on the 80-20 rule on the opposite end. But I think we're working on that. It's a work in progress for us. We recently instituted an FDC forum or a message board page on our blog to promote engagement. Tara, I don't know if you want to just say something real quick about Facebook and the 80-20 rule.
Yeah. So basically, that was part of management's concern. Actually, when we were opening our Facebook page, we were very comfortable with being information disseminators and giving information to people, but we're not really comfortable with drawing that line between personal and professional. And so that's also part of that organizational voice that I was talking about earlier. And honestly, for every organization, it's going to look a little bit different. It depends on what you're comfortable with and where you want to start off. And sometimes starting off with self-promotion and working your way into the more casual is easier for people. And so that's kind of what we're doing, and it's been working pretty well so far.
Okay, let's thank Russ and Tara for their time. Great information. We may have a chance to ask them a question or two as we move to our next Q&A segment. But now I want to move to our next presenter, who is Alicia Nunez. She's the Grant Program Manager with National Children's Advocacy Center. Alicia?
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Great. Again, thanks, Michelle, for that great introduction. I am with the NCAC, and NCAC is the founder of the CAC movement. Our model is the one that all CACs or most CACs use and are based on. Here at our training department, we provide training for professionals in the child maltreatment field, and we've trained people from all 50 states and over 26 countries. And that's just a little background about us here at NCAC, the National Children's Advocacy Center. And so talking about social media, we launched in 2009, And we found that as an agency and an organization as a whole, we had different target audiences. And so what we did was we developed a social media site or platforms for each of our target audiences. We have a Huntsville community, which is where our NCAC reaches out to our local community. We have a We Are, what we call We Are You Can, and this is our public awareness social media platform that we use to target that audience on how people can get involved in child abuse awareness and prevention in their own communities. And then we have our National Training Center site, which is where we publicize information about our webinar sessions, what we call Ask the Experts, legislative changes, and so forth. So that's kind of how we began to use different social media. And before we go in depth about increasing your traffic and engaging your audiences in your social media, I have a quick question that I would like to ask you guys. How often do you think you should post on social media? And so to answer, you can click the radio button here, and I'd just like to get an idea of how often you think the experts say you should post to social media. I'll give you a moment to answer. All right. Well, we actually have a nice split here. Some say daily, once per week. We have about 45% saying 2 to 4 times daily. And the answer to this question really is based on the social media site that you're posting to. For Facebook example, you should post 3 to 4 days, 3 to 4 days out of a week. For Twitter, you should post actually a few times daily. And for a blog, you can do it weekly or bi-weekly. So this answer is really dependent upon what social media platform you're using. And that's something to keep in mind when you are posting. It's not the same for all of them. And because we know the world of social media is very confusing, we found this illustration that we thought would be very helpful to kind of explain what each one is to be used for, because there are so many and every day a new one is arising. So we wanted to kind of give a breakdown and have some fun with it as well. And this is a breakdown of how Twitter differs from Facebook or LinkedIn. Twitter is for telling people what you're doing at any given moment, like eating a donut. And Facebook is more for sharing what you like in general, like I like donuts. And LinkedIn is for sharing what you're really good at. I'm skilled at donuts. Yet they all rely on sharing information in different ways to remain relevant and keeping people using it. And so you've decided, you know what, I'm going to launch social media, now what? And the biggest mistake that we've seen a lot of companies make is they begin to use social media, they start their site, and that's it. And they think that by having one, that's enough. Well, the biggest mistake a company or an organization can make is to have a social media site that is not maintained or updated. So we have to make sure, and Russ and Tara, spoke on that about they dedicate maybe about an hour a day in posting, and that they make sure that they stay engaged. So we want to keep doing that. The most common used social media sites are Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. And according to the financialbrand.com, Facebook users hit the Facebook site an average of 68.7 times every month. That's a lot of use. Twitter users visit an average of 31.2 times a month, and YouTube about 13 times a month. And Facebook and YouTube reach about 50% of the population. About 1 in every 8 people are on Twitter. So let's talk about Facebook in depth here. Kara earlier, when she was going through the different definitions of these social media platforms, mentioned that the Facebook page for businesses is different than a personal page. And it's instead of for personal, you have friends. The business page is likes. And you determine how many people you're reaching by the number of likes that you have. But what people really aren't aware of is that not every person that likes your page sees your posts. And it's really important that you understand that Facebook uses algorithms to determine who sees which post. In the bottom corner here, and I've kind of outlined it in a red box here, when you're on Facebook, it shows you how many of your likers have saw this post. And so you see 1361 here's the number. I mean, it shows you, hey, only 13 of your maybe 5,000 followers have seen this post. And so Facebook uses an algorithm to determine that. And comments, likes, and shares can increase your views. The factors that Facebook uses determines the post to determine who sees what post are constantly changing. Sometimes if you use a photo or if you embed a link or to a video or something like that, that might increase your reach. And so you kind of have to stay up to date. As of today, if you add a hashtag to your post, it'll get more reach to your users. Another great tool about expanding your reach is analyzing the status of your current reach. And this is one of the questions that just came up that Tara was talking about in reference to the analytics. And when you click on under your admin panel, you'll see a section that's called Insights. And analytics are amazing. In this section, you can get in-depth information on your reach. And so I have a quick screen here that we can take a look at to see what it looks like. And the overview, this is a snapshot, and you can see how many people your post was able to reach. And I'm sorry that these numbers are a little small here. I tried to get it as big as I could without distorting it. You can see the percentage of people that it reached, and so it shows you the engaged users. How many people are talking about this? This means how many other people have shared this information that you posted. Thanks, Michelle. And we also notice that a lot of people sometimes are intimidated in using analytics, but there's no need to be. Facebook makes this very easy, and although they have all of these wonderful headers, what do they mean? Well, if you click on the little question mark here, it gives you a definition so you can understand the numbers that you're actually looking at. And another great tool are the likes analytics. And in this section, you can see the gender, the age, and the location of your likes. You can see what days you received new likes. And so now let's move on and talk a little bit about Twitter. And Twitter is growing in users. It's easy to use and increase engagement in companies and products. And if you're not familiar with Twitter, it's a social media platform that only allows 140 characters per post. I'm sorry. And so earlier, I mentioned that today, if you use a hashtag on Facebook, you get more views. And I'm just curious as to how many of you are up to date on your social media jargon. And I would like to know, have you seen a hashtag or do you even know what it is? So I have another question. If you can answer using the radio buttons there, that would be great. All right. So most of you have seen the hashtags on Twitter. And so if you don't use Twitter, that means you probably haven't seen it there. Not a problem. At least every other TV show that I have been watching has a hashtag in the corner somewhere. A lot of news stations are using them as well. And so to get an understanding of what that hashtag is, before there were hashtags, there were headings, like in the yellow pages. And as digital media has evolved, new categorization methods have been developed. And search engines have what are called keywords. Well, social media has hashtags. And hashtags serve as much more than just a category or a heading. They have a way to link conversations and increase your visibility. And they make your social media site more engaging to your target audiences. And so here are some key points to remember when you're choosing to use a hashtag, and this is really important. Make sure that it's easy to read and easy to say, and this will make it easy to remember. And since Twitter has a 140 character limit, That does not exclude your hashtag. So within that 140 characters, you have to fit your hashtag. So you have to make sure you choose one that's short and that saves space. You can use things like initials, numbers to help keep it short. And if you need to, you can use what's called Bitly, Bitly, and that will help you. They will shorten a link for you if you need to. Also, choose something that is easy to remember and users will be more likely to use it more often. And before you go official with your hashtag, do a quick search on Twitter and maybe even in Google. And this helps to guard against unrelated or unattractive content being associated with your event or the topic that you're promoting. And make sure you add the tag to anything that you post that's related. You want to use that hashtag as often as possible. And the greatest thing about Twitter is that unlike other social media sites, it's very subject oriented. Hashtags are created for almost everything imaginable. And don't be afraid to use your hashtags. I promise it couldn't be easier. With Twitter, hashtag, you can reach more people with just those following your account. Anyone who tweets about your event using the official hashtag provides a link to others on their page to follow you, and they can find out more about what you put in the hashtag. And unlike a simple mention of your name, hashtags act as an actionable link, and so it can take them to your page or to the page that you're trying to promote, maybe your website or an event website. And this image here is just showing how we've used the hashtag, and what we did here was we did a hashtag for child abuse, and this shows you everyone and anyone on Twitter who's talking about child abuse at this current moment. A great example of how an organization can use hashtags, when we have our national symposium on child abuse in March every year here in Huntsville, we create different hashtags to update our participants on what's going on. If a session has changed, maybe a session has just ended, and the comments that people are talking about, oh, I just attended a great workshop at the symposium, and what their comments are. So we kind of use our hashtags for that as well. And moving on to YouTube. YouTube is a great way to help you use videos, and the best thing about YouTube is to save storage space on your server. You can link or embed YouTube videos on your website, so that the visitor does not have to go to YouTube. They can view the video on your website, and it helps you to save storage space on your server as well. And we, last but not least, talking about some of the lessons that we have learned. Once you know what website or what social media platform you're going to use, how you're going to use the information, the next thing you have to do is increase your traffic. Know your demographic information and cater your posts to your audience. Monitor your posts brought to you by new people that have visited your site, and include similar posts. Engage your viewers. We always find it interesting when we post on NCAC's Facebook page has an overwhelming response. And what we've noticed is anytime we ask a question, that gets us the greatest response. So engage your audience. And last but not least, remember that social media is a two-way street. If you would like and you do to have posts shared, retweeted, or viewed, then you have to do the same thing to your followers. Make sure you let them know that you're paying attention to what they're doing as well. Check your hashtags. Make sure there isn't any unrelated content that you don't want, and that it's unique if you possibly can. Make sure you have a social media policy as well. And at this time, I tried to get through that as quickly as I possibly could.
Alicia, Alicia, you did a fabulous job. Thank you for moving through that quickly, succinctly, but it was all very clear, and hopefully everybody understood you. We've got a couple of questions. Let's just get started since we only have about 10 minutes left. Someone's asked this question. Have any of you had any interaction between grantees on Facebook? Wait, hold on a minute. I'm reading somebody else's response. How does NCAC handle negative exploitation of subject matter hashtags for example, child abuse? So I'll repeat that again, Alicia, as you're thinking about a response. How does the National Children's Advocacy Center handle negative exploitation of subject matter hashtags, particularly around child abuse?
That's a great question. It's sometimes that it's hard to avoid because it is an open source platform. People can post whatever they would like. But the good thing is Twitter does monitor quite a bit of the website. And so if it's too negative, a lot of times it is removed. And we just try to make sure that when we post something, we post it and it's in a tasteful manner, and others can see that we're not associated with a negative post or a response to that.
Great. Here's another question, and if it's a question that the other panelists can respond to, please feel free to unmic yourself and respond. Have you had grantees interacting with each other on Facebook? And if so, how did you facilitate that interaction?
Hi, Michelle. So for Children and Family Futures, we've had a little bit of interaction. We haven't had a whole lot of people commenting on stuff per se, but we have had a lot of grantees that have liked our Facebook page and become subscribers of the blog immediately after a site visit. And they've expressed how much they enjoy seeing pictures of site visits and materials and things like that posted afterwards. So not directly on the actual social media platform, no, but they have gotten back to us that they have and really enjoyed that.
Thank you so much. Back to the question around negative posts. Can those be manually deleted?
Actually, Michelle, no, they cannot. Only the person who posted or Twitter, the actual company, can delete that post.
Great question being asked. So as we run out of time here, we've got maybe time for one or two more questions, but I want to make sure that you all avail yourself of all the great handouts in the handout pod. One of the things that I want to reference is on the, Russ, if you wouldn't mind miking yourself, one of the things I want you to notice is there is a actual social media resource list. And on that social media resource list, you will see approximately 10 or 12 great links to sites. One of the things that there are two links to is about analytics, and I think there are two great handouts. So please access those. Other questions that you all might have, please feel free to send them in. We have about 5 minutes left. If not, we're going to move to close. This is obviously a topic that we'll probably want to revisit again in maybe 3 months. I hope that you all utilize Children and Family Futures as well as the National Children's Advocacy Center as support as you begin thinking about the social media that you want to avail yourself of. A few things that I want to leave you with before I turn the closing comments over to Linda is to remember to be engaging, be active, respond in a timely manner. This one's really important. Give credit where credit is due. Be certain you cite your resources. And also remember to put links to your social media pages on your website, in your email, in your e-news, on your personal signatures. And also be where your customers are. What social media sites do they frequent? That would be important information to know. So, as we move to close, Linda Rosen with OJJDP has some final thoughts for you.
And I just wanted to say thank you all the presenters for your wonderful presentations. I've learned a lot, and I know that I'm going to use this PowerPoint to go back and review some of the information because it was gone through very quickly, and I know that there's just so much there that's useful and practical. But anyhow, final thoughts are, remember that content is king. People will visit a social media site that gives them interesting content, especially multimedia content. They also expect constant relevancy. In other words, they want continuous updates and new content. Great content can save a bad site, but a great site will not save lackluster content. So the acronym I have for you is COPE, Create, Once, Publish, Everywhere. I hope this information is helpful, and please let me know if I can be of further assistance. Thanks so much for joining us today, and don't forget to take a few minutes to complete the online evaluation. We need to have that information back from you. And I also want to remind you that this webinar will be archived on the Online University and National Training and Technical Assistance Center website. Thanks.